and thank you all for doing this with us. I'll try to pick up where Patty so eloquently left off. If Patty's message isn't clear yet, what she has been saying over and over again is one size really doesn't fit all in this pandemic and in what's happening to us. And I think what I've been observing is that it's because our lives have been suddenly frozen and each of us is in a different situation. So suddenly we are frozen into closeness with people that we're not always so close to 24/7, and into distance from people who we sometimes have relied on to be able to see, to come and go. And each of us has a different mix of that. So nobody is in quite the same situation. Too much closeness can be something that is a surprise to us. There's an old saying about marriage that I really like. It's for better or for worse, but not for lunch. This idea that we never signed up to be with each other 24/7. Our relationships didn't start that way. We didn't plan on them being that way. So one of the things that is easy for us to do is to imagine that there's something wrong because this doesn't feel so great. It isn't bliss by any means. And strains in relationships often get more strained when we're together all the time without as much of a break. So one of the things you're all noticing is that we need to establish new routines and not to assume that there's something wrong with our relationships with the people right next to us if there's tension, if it's not easy. And of course, the other thing that we're noticing is that there's sudden distance from people who we rely on to be close to. And that can be everybody from the person you buy your coffee from in the morning to the person who annoys you in meetings at work, but they're your person who annoys you and you're used to seeing them. Many of us can't be with our grown children. I have a son who's in New York, in Greenwich Village, in the heart of the pandemic. I'm really worried about him. And so many of us can't be with grandchildren, can't be present for the birth of grandchildren as we had planned on being. And as Patty was saying, pandemics, like many national crises, generate in us fear and agitation. And in fact, in the pandemics of the past, when we read about plagues, right, it's one of the things we see, which is our human reactions to chronic fear and fear of each other. So what that can result in is the tendency to blame, as Patty was saying, blame ourselves and blame other people. The other thing that can happen is that we can spill over our agitation from worry about the virus and worry about what we read in the news and watch on TV to what's happening in our lives. So we spend a few minutes watching the latest dreadful report on CNN, and then the next person we turn to in conversation is somebody with whom we're probably going to feel a little more agitation. And so it's really important to literally recognize arousal and how that may shape our conversations with people, especially the people we're close to all day long. As Patty talked about, there is grief. It's grieving not just in the big ways for people who die, but grieving for all those small things that we're not going to get to have, graduations we're not going to get to attend. So I think the final thing I would say is that the important thing is to think about your expectations for what this was going to be like. All of us have an idea of what it should be like to be home all the time, what it should be like to be in lockdown in this way. Some people talk about, I know I'm going to clean out my closets. I know I'm going to get into better physical shape. Notice the difference between those expectations and the reality. And don't hesitate to talk about that with other people, because I think what you will find if you haven't already, is that everybody is surprised. This isn't what we thought it was going to be. I mean, who would have dreamed that we would be in this situation in the first place? But that now our reactions are not what we would expect. And just to harken back to what Patty says, none of our reactions are wrong. They're simply what they are and need to be acknowledged and managed.